how's it going? Hmm. So before I get started, I should introduce you to one of my mugs. Now this is a mug, yeah, hat with a little chef hat and a little chef collar. Um, she got it for me for Christmas one year in a shop in Ithaca, New York. We used to live in upstate New York, outside of Rochester. I'm not from Rochester or New York, but she was going to Cornell, not as a student, but we had a sick dog, and her vet school is really good. So she took our dog down there uh, quite often, and she'd be sitting around for a couple hours in Ithaca, which is where uh, Cornell is. And she ended up just getting that for me in some silly little hipster shop. It's really far from the interstate, so not much else to do other than stay in Ithaca. Um, So kind of fits in with their whole ivory tower uh, mentality. Anyway, the next two lines in if, I'm just going to roll right through them. So the next two lines we have are if you can dream and not make your dreams your master. If you can think and not make thoughts your aim. Now this is quite interesting. So it's like you can do this, but don't do it too much. I'll pick apart each section of this. So that's good. It's about finding a balance. So if you can dream, right? So it's good to have dreams and goals and plans, and if you don't have any dreams and you kind of just drift aimlessly, it's not really fun. You just kind of feel like I should be doing something, but I'm not doing anything. No place I'm headed for, and you could end up spending years of your life not doing anything special, just sort of bumbling around. And one day you'll wake up to find how much time you've wasted when you do end up finding dreams of your own. You just sort of like la 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 la. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Oh no! I have something I want to do, but I've wasted the last 10 years of my life just doing. I don't know what to do. So I think one of the smart things to do is to find a way to deal with this. Is just to plan for something that suits just about every plan. So in a sense, like you got to get experience doing something you don't hate. So at this some point, when you're starting off, you don't know much about the world or even what's available to know or what to learn about. The best example of this, I would say, is when you're going to a university. Um, at least in America, you can go in with a major sort of specialty that's called undeclared. So you're just going to university. And then, so what you do is you start working on core requirements. Is you basically about half of your university years are spent doing things that aren't your major. Like I had to take a geology class, psychology class. I had to take oh Lord, classes I had nothing to do and never even touched the subject afterwards. But it's exposing you to everything. I guess that's why they would call it like a liberal education. Is like you're sort of you're sent there to focus on. You don't know what it is, but at least you're familiar with concepts outside of your what eventually becomes uh, your major. And so you get exposed to things you would never get exposed to if you just pigeonholed yourself. So if you go to school for history or for economics, like I did, you would never understand certain concepts outside of economics. Now, I think economics does involve a bit of math. You have to know a bit of sociology and psychology because there's an overlap within the social sciences because we sort of think in similar ways. There is an overlap a little bit with practical math like physics, but you don't really get exposed to things that like English composition. So, in a sense, when you go to a school and you're undeclared, you basically say, the school says, okay, here are, I don't know, 12 classes that you have to take, a little bit from every department, just to expose you to them. And if you're undeclared, this is a great way of finding out what you want and more importantly, what you don't want to study. So you have to basically expose yourself to things if you don't have any goals. In the meantime, if you're still not finding anything, at least you're doing something that's productive in the meantime. Building skills. I'll tell you, some skills are really important for every subject. Is mathematics. I know that people in English don't really ever have to use math, but it's good to think mathematically in terms of at least to know algebra. I'm not asking everybody to know high-level physics, high-level statistics, or anything like that. Things that they cram down your throat in economics, because you have to know a lot of calculus, a lot of statistics, a lot of algebra. So those are, requisite skills for a specific thing. But I'm saying general, you should know algebra. You should be able to know how to write a paper. You should be able to know how to read a book. And I'm not just saying like read, ha ha ha, a 5-year-old can do that. I mean like how to read a textbook, read it efficiently to get the most out of it. How to study something, how to, and do it properly. And a lot of this is habit forming. And you could be doing this in the meantime while you're exploring different options. But the thing is that you're actually developing the real skills you need to do. All of those things, you probably won't even be using your regular major. You will be using those skills. So in the meantime, while you might not have a dream, but you're going to find something that you really latch onto, unless you're really just I forget what the word is, like ahedonic or something like that. You have no sense of pleasure or something like that. Those are sort of rare cases, but you just need to be exposed to more. So in the meantime, you can actually do something that when you do trip over something you do like, then you say, well, I know how to do a lot of this, and I find out, I'm not at the absolute beginning point. I actually have a lot of skills to make this not only like a lot easier or make it go a lot faster or get better grades or anything like that. But you also learn, that because you're good at something, you end up doing something you like. I mean, it's kind of like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is good because he liked the game of basketball so much that he would practice it so much because it was really a pleasure to do. So he would practice so much because he loved it. And the thing is, it works the other way, is that you love something because you practice it so much. It's almost like you sort of like a form of Stockholm syndrome. You spend so much time doing something, you almost kind of trick yourself into loving it. But I really do think that you have to love it in order to spend that much time. But you do end up caring for something you're really good at because you've invested in it and you care about it. So the next line, he says, not make dreams your master. So he says, it's good to dream, it's good to have goals, it's good to have ideas that you really latch on to, but don't live in a daydream. There is reality, and the things in your head are sort of, the fantasies they have are sort of idealized visions of the future, and they might not line up with reality very well. And not to notice that will really work against you. So you basically have to understand, look, there's stuff I want. This is reality. This is the way the world works. If what I want doesn't really line up with reality, I'm in a world of hurt. But I would say that, you basically just have to be aware of reality. And in order to do that, you can't live in a daydream. So you could spend a whole lifetime with your head in the clouds. I've known people like that. They don't really understand reality. Everything that they want to happen is reality to them. It's just not the case that everything you want is something that's going to happen or is actually true. So, in a sense, like I would say, people like that would say something like my truth or my reality, and I hate those terms because there really is only the truth and reality, and your reality is just you interpreting reality. When your view of reality or your view of the truth strays from reality or the truth, then you will suffer a consequence. And I guess the extent to which your version of those events strays from reality, then you might suffer more consequences. I mean, think about this. You have people who are on drugs, and they see talking flowers, they hear singing trees, but they're on drugs. So their senses have been diluted to thinking that these things actually exist when the drugs have just totally warped their perception of reality. And so, you might hear about people who are high on PCP jumping off buildings because they think they can fly because they're Superman. Just because that's your version of the truth, that's how you see things, doesn't mean you actually are Superman and you actually can fly. So I would say don't waste your time on the impossible. So dreams are really good. It's good to sort of work towards them as long as you're sort of well grounded in them. Don't find something that you hate, obviously, because then you're just living a miserable life. I don't think you should think that you'll land the perfect situation because your natural talents are sort of in that direction. Uh, it's a possibility if you're naturally talented, say basketball or baseball or whatever. But you just have to work on them, right? It doesn't, Michael Jordan didn't just show up in the league because he was talented. It was a lot of hard work behind that. And you know his story that he actually got cut from the varsity basketball team. It pushed him. He really wanted to make it, so it pushed him so hard to develop habits that made him great. And so, I think that you're not just going to land a perfect situation just because you want to, because you have great connections. And the thing is, because a lot of it's hard work, and we fantasize about things. We don't imagine us really working hard at things. They just sort of happen in your fantasies, and then that's it. Nothing bad really happens in your fantasies. That's why we really call them fantasies. So you can try to build them, but build up a situation for yourself. But don't be surprised if you get let down, and don't get destroyed when things get out. Don't work out in your favor. That's why you shouldn't let dreams your master, because if you one day reality is going to knock on your door and say, no, that basketball thing ain't working out for you. You need to find you need a plan B. If you're gutted by that, that's bad news for you. So the next line is, if you can think. Now, this is really important. And I know this is sort of like, well, duh, everyone needs to think, but you need to cultivate the ability to think. So you need to hone the art of perceiving what's real, develop rational faculties, learn history, learn human psychology. And these are the things I was telling you before, that those things, that the skills that you need in university to succeed are not actually like learning history or economics. It's the skills behind them. It's learning to study, learning to read for comprehension, learning to write to persuade people of your opinion. These are the really important things. The economics is just kind of how you do it. What platform or what arena you do it in. So these skills, they help you process what you see in the world, how to synthesize it with what you want in the world. So that's basically, I know what reality is. I know that I can kind of push people in this direction. And you're trying to make a sale in business. You're trying to persuade people, if you're the government, hope you aren't, trying to push a policy by trying to persuade other people. And so, you're learning to develop these skills to see reality and then maybe push people in a certain direction. So these are skills that, not only help you process what you see in the world, but how to synthesize it with what you want. And I'd say, like, there's another thing. It's like, I would go even further than what Rudyard Kipling says. Is that, never stop learning. You will always find the need, or it's always really helpful to learn new things. How to navigate business, right? A lot of that psychology, a lot of it's learning about how a market works, how supply lines work, how advertising works, which is a lot of psychology. How to navigate family, right? You have to learn how to deal with people you live with. You supposedly love them. Most of the time you do, but it's not always easy. How to navigate friends, how to navigate strangers. These skills actually help you do this. How to do your finances. I'm learning new abstract things and new practical things all the time, and it actually makes my life a lot easier. So I'll be honest with you. In a way previous video, maybe 3 or 4 months back, I was talking about losing weight, and I've actually lost a lot of weight. And now some of these clothes that I've had in boxes actually are starting to fit again. But what I've noticed is that when I've started getting fatter, the buttons would break on. So it's kind of hot outside, so it's now shorts weather. And I noticed that there are probably about 4 or 5 pairs of shorts with the button popped. Part of it's laziness. Part of it is I was getting fat and, the waist is bulging a bit. And I just noticed that like a lot of these shorts didn't have buttons. And I was like, it's been a long time since I've sewed a button. So I basically sat down, and YouTube's a great thing for this. How to sew a button. I know these are very like practical life skills. So instead of plunking down, if you say 20, $25 for a pair of shorts and there's 5 of them up there, that's 125 bucks that I would have had to spend on shorts. Now they're free because I got them back, right? They sort of disappear if you can't wear them, and you got it back. So I saved myself a ton of money, and I learned a new skill. And you get good at it, and you start thinking, oh, what else can I do? I could start cooking things. I've always been a bit of a cook, but it's always nice to develop some skills beyond that. There are 1,000 different skills out there. And I tell you, if you're single, especially if you're a man, this is true with women, but men, if you are single, learn to cook. If you're looking for a woman, learn to cook. Women love men who can cook. It's just, and if you can't do anything, just learn how to make macaroni and cheese. Okay, you got that. Okay. Learn how to make pasta. Oh, well, there's an overlap with macaroni and cheese. You're boiling pasta, essentially, except this time using sauce. Even if everything is store-bought, all you need to do is learn how to boil stuff. And then you say, okay, instead of the powdered cheese, I'll put in some cheddar. Or I'll put in some, gorgonzola, or whatever your favorite cheese is. And you're developing these skills, and there's so much overlap. And eventually, you look back, holy crap, I couldn't boil water like 5 years ago, and suddenly I've got a girlfriend who loves how I cook. And also like learning to repair things and cleaning. So if I had to do it all over again, I would have taken, when I was like, let's say 15 or 16. When you really don't have a ton of responsibility. Most kids don't have a ton of responsibility. Actually, sadly, a lot of kids today don't even take jobs anymore because they're just given pocket money by their parents for doing nothing. I don't know. I'm going to leave that one for another time, but I would have taken a lot of low-paying jobs like working in a pizzeria or working as a cleaner, maybe even at a hotel, like a maid or something like that. Not because I wanted the tons of money that you don't get as a cleaner or working at a pizzeria, but you learn a skill. I knew a guy who worked in a pizzeria in his past, like in a previous thing, and he could make such wonderful pizzas. Like a normal person just couldn't make it. He had to have done this job for 2 or 3 years. He's like, oh yeah, just do. Done. It's just like, and the same thing with cleaning. Like, so we were cleaning this weekend, and some things I didn't know how to clean, so I had to like look it up or ask my wife. She's even worse than I am. Some things, and sometimes it's just a lot of elbow grease, but sometimes it's just the smallest thing, like using baking soda is really good at getting rid of stains or like helping you like on pots and pans, like they get kind of discolored. Baking soda does the trick all the time, and it's dead cheap. Every house has it. It's great. So like a lot of these things are skills that you can use in the future, but also you learn a lot of I would say soft skills, like or skills that kind of make you more valuable, and not in a sense that it's not like you can repair a car or something like that, which is very valuable. But I mean in the sense of like, you add value to yourself in your relationship. So, if you've ever worked retail and you've been somewhat good at it, it doesn't pay very well. It teaches you how to deal with customers, with strangers who might not always be very pleasant. So you learn the skill of diplomacy, of staying firm in your, no, we're not going to give you a discount. You don't buy anything here. We give discounts to people who drop like $1,000 a month. Okay, we'll give you a discount. We don't want you going elsewhere. If you're just buying so I worked in a wine shop, and people would just moan about this and that. And like, oh, well, can I get a discount on a $5 bottle of wine? No, you can't. Basically taking everything that we make off of that. You're stealing from my wages. So no, you can't have that, you cheapskate. Just buy the $5 bottle of wine and get the hell out of here. But you can't say that, right? So you basically have to find a soft way of saying it, a very pleasant but firm way of saying that. And also you learn, like, from my skills like that, I'm actually really good at wine. Like, I know the different types of grapes, what they go with, how much they cost, the history of stuff. Just because I worked in a wine shop for a few years. Wine shop. And I know about cheeses because we sold cheese there too. So, that came in handy because my wife loves both of those. So I'm like, oh, yeah, look at this, She'll look at it, she's like, sure? I was like, mm-hmm. She finds out, yeah, you were right. I was a lifeguard, so not only do I knew CPR, I should probably, I think everybody should probably have CPR training, but I should probably get that renewed. But I mean, the stories I have about that, I mean, first of all, you learn a lot about chemistry because you have to keep the pool chemistry clean. So you learn about, I learned more about chemistry from working at a pool than I ever learned in a chemistry class. And I learned, okay, don't put those two things together. Everybody in this pool is going to be smoked out of here if we put those two together, the acids and the bases. And about pH and what's a good pH for eyes. Obviously, when you swim, and people don't always use goggles, so you don't want it at 7; it's too low. You don't want it at 8 because that's too high. You want it around 7.4, 7.6. Not that's super practical, but I also learned, like, I've actually saved lives. A couple children whose parents were, obviously, if anybody's been a lifeguard out there, parents didn't disappeared. Here's a kid, you're the babysitter now, disappeared. 1, 2-year-old, I don't know exactly how old, just in the pool, and it's crowded, and I can't watch everything, and I'm going to see this kid panicking, so I jumped in, had lungs full of water. And if they're young, they're particularly young, you put them on your hand, their stomach on your hand, and just smack the crap out of them. I know, I'm sure that the instructors wouldn't say it that way, but that's what you do, is you basically just try to smack the water out of them, and it worked. Thank God. That would have been traumatic if it didn't. I was like, you know what? That kid might not be alive if I hadn't done that. If I hadn't done that, or had brain damage, or God knows what. And knowing that parent probably would have gotten sued for it. But you learn how to say, okay, look, kid, watch your kid. It's your kid. It's not my kid. I don't even know the thing's name. But you have to learn how to do it with use those soft skills from, like, I wouldn't call them crappy jobs. Every job is noble. I know that. But jobs that pay crap, okay? And then use that to your advantage. So, and let's move on. So, not make thoughts your aim. So this is a really important thing. So we've talked about the importance of thinking and learning, and then using that knowledge for practical purposes. But I think this is a warning against living 100% of your life in pursuit of knowledge. I think this goes along with that line that says, don't think too wise, in the sense that everything that you learn should have some purpose in your life or in the life of others. So idle knowledge, you kind of can call it trivia. And I think that if you have a decent memory, you kind of just keep things in your mind. So it's not exactly like I know a lot of trivia. I actually won a lot of, like, trivia contests. Onto a few baseball games for free, or the price of the beer during the contest, because I knew stuff. I guess that's sort of useful knowledge in the sense that I won some money or won some tickets to a baseball game. But everything you learn should be for a purpose. So in the sense, like, idle knowledge kind of makes you, like, permanently exist in a very abstract place. You should live in the world, right? You should be in the world. So I think at some point, if you look at the very early philosophy, there's sort of a lot of it's trying either to be self-help. You see the Stoics in this, and I love them for it. Because in actuality, the Stoics were the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy. If you read cognitive CBT, is what it's called, as somebody who's gone through depression, that you kind of get introduced to these concepts. That CBT actually came from the Stoics. They've pinched so much from the Stoics and in a sense, like it's actually better off. You're better off reading people like Seneca or Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius than you are some dry textbook on CBT, because there they put practical things in there about your life. And so, but I would say that philosophy started off as very practical, almost sort of like how to or self help. And it slowly just degraded over the course of the last 2,500 years to the point where if you pick up a modern philosophical textbook, it's just garbage. I mean, there's nothing you can get from it. Because I think a lot of the sort of the original things were psychological in the sense of how do I coexist in this world, and what is the right thing to do, and what is justice, what is virtue, etc. Going back to people like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. That was developed a bit, and it's also interesting to say, okay, what is a just system, etc. So you talk about justice, you might start talking about things like St. Thomas Aquinas or John Locke or whatever, and then it sort of falls apart. Its head is completely disappeared up its own ass. What they talk about is no longer practical. It's no longer understandable unless you have a PhD in that particular area of philosophy. And it removes anybody involved in the process completely from participating in the concrete world. It's just intellectual navel gazing at some point. Human beings, I believe that human beings are made for work. They're made for social purposes, love, coexisting, but also contemplation. So I do believe that it is good to think and contemplate things. This coincides a lot with religion. It's also coincidental with classical liberal thinking. Is that, look, what do we do best? We work. A lot of us do. We are meant to love. We are social creatures. We're also meant to contemplate things, to think about things. This is how we improve things. We sit down and think about, how can I make a better mousetrap? Those kind of things. But that's practical. And it's nice to know, like, practical thinking in terms of what you should do. Like, what do I owe my parents? What do I owe my children? What do I owe my neighbor? What do I owe my country? What does my country owe me? These are abstract concepts, but they're actually practical in the sense of you can do something on them. You can actually put into practice what you learn from them or what you take away from them. So contemplation is a good thing. I'll tell you like a little thing. So my wife and I, mostly I, cleaned the house this weekend, top to bottom, just everything. Everything got cleaned. And so I did this, and the thing is, like, and afterwards I started working on my blog a little bit, but I noticed that there's always more work to be done. There's always something needing doing. It's nice to be able to sit back and say, you know what, I cleaned the house top to bottom, worked on my blog a little bit. You know what, the hell with it. I'm sitting down, I'm going to sit down and read a book, and just enjoy the afternoon. Right? That's it. So it's nice to sit down and appreciate a job well done, to sit back and say, the house looks really great, or the blog's really coming together. And it's even nice to use philosophy or philosophical thinking, to think about what makes a job well done. Why is this a bad job and this is a good job? It's practical because then you can tell the difference whether you're doing something right or you're doing something wrong. Or it's nice to think, why should I do the thing in the first place? Why should I clean a house? Well, it's a mess. How many houses have you gone into? They're just gross. You think, okay, not only would I be embarrassed if somebody came in this house and looked at the state of the toilet or the sink or whatever, but also I don't want to live in science experiment, something growing, some new species is growing in my toilet. I don't want to live in that place. And so, you think, okay, The reason why I want to do this is this. Or you might think about why it's good to do something well. Like, sometimes they say, uh, the reward of a job well done is having done it well. So these are practical philosophical things. But you can go through this until it's just no longer has any bearing in reality. It's completely divorced from why you started in this line of thinking in the first place. And then once you've gotten to the point where you started getting too abstract, it's just best to that you've gone down the road so long, and you think, oh, well, I've thought about why I should clean the house so long, for so long. Now the house is dirty again. So let's just start working again. So I think at some point you shouldn't completely waste your time thinking about things. You can overthink things. You can sometimes psychologically that's really bad, especially if you have sort of mental illness like depression or anxiety. Like sometimes thinking is your worst friend, your worst enemy. Sometimes it's both. So anyway, that's about all. I've gone on for half an hour about this. All right. So I will see you in another video. Bye bye.